All right, let's do this. We're diving into the world of Jimi Hendrix today. You know those musicians who just transcend time? Hendrix is one of them. I mean, Purple Haze still electrifies every room, am I right? What is it about his music that just hits different?
It's wild, right? Like you say Hendrix, you think guitar god. But it's more than that. He didn't just play the guitar, he turned it into something else entirely. You can hear his fingerprints all over music today, even after all these years.
Totally. And here's the kicker. The sources say he couldn't even read music. Are you serious? The guy who created some of the most innovative, complex guitar work ever played by ear.
No joke. Couldn't read a single note on sheet music. It's mind-blowing when you think about it. It was all pure instinct, pure talent, translated into sound.
It makes you think differently about, like, natural talent. And speaking of natural talent, you gotta love the story about Hendrix and the broom. Apparently, little Jimmy was caught rocking out on a broom like it was his axe. Then his dad gets him a ukulele and, well, the rest is history. What do you think? Those early experiments, did they set the stage for everything?
I mean, come on, the kid was born to play. Going from a broom to a ukulele to that legendary Supro Ozark, his first electric guitar. It shows you, right? Some people, they just have that drive. You can't teach that.
Makes you wonder what a Jimi Hendrix broom solo would have sounded like, though, doesn't it? Experimental doesn't even begin to cover it. But on the serious note, his journey takes a wild turn. The Army. The guy was a screaming eagle. Hendrix and the paratroopers, who knew?
It's crazy how life works, you know? He gets sidelined by a training injury, but that pushes him right back into music's arms. It's like fate stepped in. And this is when he starts going by Jimmy James, playing backup for legends like Little Richard. Imagine sharing a stage with those guys. It's like a rock and roll masterclass.
Backing up Ike and Tina Turner, too. That's a whole other level of performance energy right there. But then enters another key player, Chas Chandler, the bassist for the Animals. Talk about a career shift. 1 minute you're a rock star, the next you're discovering and managing Jimi Hendrix.
Chas Chandler was something else. He sees Hendrix and he just knows. This is it. This is the future of music. He brings him to London, puts the Jimi Hendrix experience together, and bam, history in the making.
Talk about an eye for talent, right? It's like Chas Chandler had a crystal ball and it was playing Purple Haze. Speaking of which, did you know Hey Joe, his breakout hit, actually blew up in the UK first? Makes you think about how music travels.
It's true. Success has a funny way of zigzagging sometimes before it goes boom. And Hey Joe wasn't just a one-hit wonder. This was part of Are You Experienced? His debut album, and let me tell you, they don't make debuts like that anymore. It's still considered one of the all-time greats. I mean, come on. Purple Haze, Foxy Lady, Fire. Talk about an introduction.
Seriously, those songs are pure energy, pure emotion. They just grab you and don't let go. But here's what really gets me. Hendrix wasn't content with just playing music. He became obsessed with the studio, almost like it was another instrument to master. What was it about that environment that pulled him in so deeply?
He was never one to settle, was he? Hendrix saw the recording studio as an extension of his creativity, another tool to sculpt and shape his sound, like take Axis, bold as love. He gets into the studio and starts playing with stereo effects, panning guitars left and right, creating this whole sonic landscape. It blew people's minds.
Mind-blowing is right. He was way ahead of his time with those techniques. And Electric Ladyland, oh man, it's a masterpiece of studio experimentation. The way he layered those tracks, weaving in feedback and distortion like brushstrokes, it's like he painted an entire world of sound.
It's true, he wasn't afraid to experiment, to push the boundaries of what a recording studio could be. Backwards recording, phasing, you name it, Hendrix was all over it. He treated the studio like his own personal sonic playground. And the results, well, they speak for themselves.
Absolutely. And speaking of iconic moments, we got to talk about Woodstock. Hendrix's performance there, it's legendary. His rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner, it was more than just a song, it was a moment in time.
There's no doubt about it. It transcended music. It became a symbol, raw, powerful, a reflection of the times. Hendrix captured the spirit of that era, the turmoil, the hope. He tapped into something bigger than himself.
It gives me chills just thinking about it. But even after Woodstock, he didn't rest on his laurels. He forms the Band of Gypsies, dives headfirst into funk and R&B. I mean, talk about range. It's like he was constantly pushing himself, exploring every corner of his musicality.
He was restless that way, always searching, always evolving. The Band of Gypsies, it was a chance for him to explore a different side of himself, to tap into these deeper grooves. He wasn't afraid to break free from expectations, and that's what made him so captivating.
It's true. And in the middle of all this, he finds time to create Electric Lady Studios. His own space to create, to experiment. What a legacy. You said something earlier that really resonated, that Hendrix was more than just a musician. He was a cultural phenomenon. It's true. And in the middle of all this, he finds time to create Electric Lady Studios, his own space to create, to experiment. What a legacy. You said something earlier that really resonated, that Hendrix was more than just a musician. He was a cultural phenomenon. What was it about him, you think? Why did he connect with people on such a deep level, even now?
It's that authenticity,
Ah.
you could just feel it. He was never afraid to put himself out there, to experiment, to be vulnerable, to push the boundaries with his music, but with, like, everything. It was more than music with him.
Oh, absolutely. The style, that afro, the way he moved on stage, like he was electrifying.
He had this presence, this mystique about him, like a force of nature. And his music, it was the same way. It went beyond words, beyond language. It just hit you right in the soul.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's interesting, you mentioned earlier how his sound resonated so strongly in the UK. Do you think being part of that scene, working with British musicians, did that change his music?
Oh, definitely. The UK music scene back then, it was like a pressure cooker of creativity. You had Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, all these guys pushing the limits of rock and blues. It was the perfect environment for Hendrix to really find his voice.
It's incredible to think about the ripple effect he had. Even today, you hear Hendrix in everything, rock, blues, funk, even metal. I mean, Miles Davis, Prince, everybody was listening.
It's true. He redefined what you could do with an electric guitar. He wasn't just playing notes. It was like he was pulling sounds out of thin air with feedback and distortion. It was expressive, like another language he was inventing right there on the spot.
He took the guitar to another dimension. And it's tragic, isn't it? To think what he could have done with more time. But the body of work he left behind is it's phenomenal.
It really is. When you think about it, he was only really in the spotlight for a few short years. But in that time, he turned the music world upside down. He changed the way we think about the electric guitar, the recording studio, everything.
This deep dive has been amazing. Seriously.
Yeah.
I feel like I've rediscovered Hendrix all over again. It's more than Purple Haze.
Couldn't agree more.
And to everyone listening, I mean it. Dig deeper, go beyond the hits. Find those live recordings, the B-sides. You might just surprise yourself with what you find. Until next time, keep exploring. This is The Deep Dive, signing off.